The biggest question impacting the future of the Philadelphia 76ers and possibly the entire NBA is what is next for Joel Embiid. Can the Sixers star return to his place as one of the most valuable players in the league and clear-cut top talents, or is the end in sight for the former franchise centerpiece? We have a concerning report that did surface coming from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points. I do think it is one that we should take with a grain of salt, and I do want to make that clear from the start, but do want to dive into exactly what is reported, as well as a couple quotes that I think sort of support the point and sort of push back on it from the article, the deep dive that we got from Don't Tune on ESPN there. So to dive right into things here, to start off the bat with this report that was making its waves around social media saying, from Legion Hoops here report, there's, quote, genuine concern around the league about Joel Embiid's knee health. Now, to give the full context of this from Brett himself, is he quote tweets, shout out to Honey Bunny, who's active in my comments as well, asking, when are the Joel Embiid and Paul George updates coming? And Brett replies, only updates are that George is out for the start of training camp and may not play in preseason. Too early to tell there. As for Embiid, there is genuine concern about his knee health. Of course, word from Philly gets downplayed, but around the league, word is bad. Now, why I say that we should take this with a grain of salt here is who is Brett Siegel talking to in this regard? And I think this is just kind of, for Joel Embiid specifically, I think only Joel Embiid and maybe the Sixers have a real feel for what his knee looks like. And to be perfectly honest here, it would be far more insane to blindly believe there's a 100% chance this guy is just going to be himself again. We've seen the way that his career has progressed. We've seen the track record of big men with knee and foot issues who've had as many of injury concerns as Joel Embiid has dealt with over the duration of his career. So it is fair to have your doubts here. What I do think should be kept in context here is it is not that long ago that Joel Embiid was a clear-cut top 3 player in basketball and putting up historic stats. I mean, to pull up what he was doing just a couple seasons earlier here that we are talking about, the Sixers were 26-7 with Embiid in the lineup before he injured his left knee at Golden State in January 2024. So once again, 2 seasons ago that we were discussing here. He was averaging 35.3 points in 34 minutes, outpacing Wilt Chamberlain's 1961-62 season record and on his way to become the only the second player in history to score more than a point a minute. He scored at least 30 points in 22 consecutive games, the 5th largest 30-point stretch in NBA history. He tallied 16 straight games with at least 30 points and 10 rebounds, tying Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the second longest streak. During December in 2023, the Sixers went 8-1 with Embiid on the floor. He averaged 40.2 points and 12.6 rebounds at a comical 60.6% shooting there. That is absurd stuff and some of the most impressive basketball that I've seen in my entire life, and I think it expands far beyond that. That is legitimate NBA history, the level that he's playing at, and it is a huge bummer that we did not get to see how did this season conclude in the proper way. Obviously, injuries derailing it, and then he made his return. He pushed to come back for that New York Knicks series, and it was very clear that he did not look like himself out there, despite the stats flying with him there. And then beyond that, immediately into the Olympics, and it's led us to this sort of heartbreak of last season in which he never was able to be the Joel Embiid that we've come to expect. And to dive into what he brought from a statistical perspective last year, across his 30.2 minutes per game, 23.8 points, 8.2 rebounds, 4.5 assists, shot just 44.4% from the floor, 29.9% from 3 there. Now over 30 years old, he is 31 heading into next year. I get the concern. Now, this is the point that I do want to make clear in context of the Joel Embiid conversation. Is so often whenever there are these sort of rock-the-boat concerns and reports flying out, the immediate reaction that I think this pushes is trade Joel Embiid. End this era. It's over. And the point that I want to make clear is the Sixers and Joel Embiid are married here. This is a long-term relationship that neither side are going to be capable of getting out of. And the reason that I say that here is for these same concerns that the Sixers carry, every other team in the league faces here. To pull up his contract directly, he's on the books for $55 million next year before this extension kicks in, with the first year being in 26-27. You can see it as an estimated number there because there is still a little bit of uncertainty with what that salary cap number will be, and it is a percentage-based contract. But on the books for an estimated $57.9 million in the 26-27 season, $62.5 million in the 27-28 season, and a player option for $67.1 million in the 28-29 season. That is a lot of money for a player with this level of uncertainty. And And directly for how it works out on the court, I kind of think there are only two options here. That yes, I could potentially see a world where Joel Embiid is able to scale his usage down a little bit, still impact winning, still play good team basketball, and just rely more on the Jared McCains, the Tyrese Maxeys, the Quentin Grimes, the VJ Edgecombs as this next generation of young guns here. The next future of this Sixers organization can be all of these players learning how to play together with Embiid as just a part of it rather than the full centerpiece in the way that it has been for the past decade. And while I think there's a small chance of that, the more two likely alternatives that I see is number one, that Joel Embiid bounces back, that he looks like a clear-cut franchise centerpiece type of player still and is ready to compete at a high level. Daryl Morey has been quite open and quite expressive in every interview that he does, is that is how he sees things playing out, that he does not believe Joel Embiid, that if it's not going to work out physically, if he can't be the best version of himself, he's just going to walk away. If he's back on the floor, he's going to be the high version of himself. And that brings me to that other point of what if Joel Embiid does walk away? All of a sudden, that just completely shifts this era of Sixers basketball, and that isn't the worst thing in the world. That for so long, life after Joel Embiid looked bleak, that there was not this up-and-coming hope. There was not this plethora of young talent the organization had to lean on. They now kind of do. That when you look at VJ Edgecombe, Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Quentin Grimes, that is a better starting point that a lot of franchises can deal with. And that is not even acknowledging the Justin Edwards, the Adem Bonas, Janai Broom, if you believe in his future role here. There is some talent that you can look towards moving forward, and that is something that does paint things very positively there. Now, that is still not the best case scenario for winning in the short term. To have a chance at an NBA championship around Joel Embiid, you need him to be the guy that is capable of carrying that weight. I just think the reality is nobody knows the answers at this point, and I don't think Joel Embiid himself has the answer to this. So for Brett Siegel specifically, I get the concern, and to pull up some of the report once again here, I thought this was an interesting point from Basketball Forever saying not good. There are reportedly significant concerns around the long-term health of Joel Embiid's knee, while Paul George may miss the preseason after suffering a knee injury in the offseason. Workouts, Brett Siegel reports. George and Embiid missed a combined 104 games last season and are set to make $109 million between the two of them for the upcoming season. Now, again, this is far from ideal. This is not exactly what you want from an organization. That you want your high-paid guys being out there, being the 100% version of himself, and delivering from a production standpoint. But the reality is, I think the Sixers are okay and suited to roll with the worst case scenario here. In the best case, we're certainly rooting for the Joel Embiid success, rooting for the return, but I don't think there's any sort of report or source right now that we should be taking that significantly. For the time being, it is full speed go, continue progressing as expected, and I really think from the Sixers direction here, that the more of the focus will be, this is not entirely Joel Embiid basketball in the way that the team was designed last year. This is now we have these new guys that we can rely on. That VJ Edgecombe is going to be a dude from day one. Jared McCain is going to be expected to be a high-level offensive contributor right from the opening tip this year. Tyrese Maxey should be expected to resume his all-star trajectory that he obviously made an appearance last year, and then everything went wrong this season. He was still very close in those all-star voting. I think there's probably one or two more spots in the East that he does make that. Nonetheless, my point being, they are all ascending here. That this is now the new identity of the Sixers organization, is not just living or dying with Joel Embiid, but he's still going to be a huge part of it if he's here and if he is healthy. So we'll ultimately see what happens. This report did not change any of my perspective. Again, I think it would be insane to just blindly 100% believe that Joel Embiid is certainly going to be healthy next season, but I don't think there's anything new or news that I think Brett is reporting in his tweet here. I think this is more him theorizing, talking to people, and a lot of common sense around the league of people saying, well, he's over 7 feet. He's over 30 years old. We've seen the injury track record. This happening year in and year out. I probably don't love his chances of coming back, and I understand that. But Joel Embiid is one of one, and I'm not counting him out quite just yet. So we'll see what ultimately unfolds. Still a lot more questions than answers on the situation, but I don't think this is anything that should have raised our level of panic beyond what it already rightfully is at there. But let me know what you guys think about all that. Do you agree with my overall premise, or is this something that changed the way you think about the future of the Sixers? Drop those thoughts below. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning into the video. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not just yet. Drop a like on this video. We'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.